Hi, this is Anton Krieger. This episode of All Things Green is brought to you by NextGen Clean Energy Solutions, your sustainable easy button from concept to completion. Welcome to All Things Green. I'm Anton, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. Danielle Doza is the Vice President of Sustainability and Environmental Services at the Cleveland Cavaliers, the first senior level position of its kind in the NBA. Danielle, thank you so much for being here. No pun intended, but you kind of are like writing the playbook as like the first senior position of its kind, right, in the NBA. Can you tell me how maybe that's been challenging for you?
It's challenging in that, I have to think about how do I approach decisions? Who do I need to involve? Working with our whole leadership team, and how do I build relationships there? How do I make the case to each of them?
Yeah.
And our company is about 500 full-time people. It's fairly big, and then we have a lot of part-time staff who come in and work for events, whether it's housekeeping, security, something like that. So it's a fairly big company. And how do we approach decision-making is important. What has worked well in the past? How should we do it? What do we need to consider? So I'm still learning all of that, but I am really lucky to be able to come into this organization that intentionally made this position high level, so it does have influence and can influence decision-making. And then also the culture is really wonderful. People are super supportive. Everyone's excited about sustainability, even if they don't quite understand it. They know there's value there, so I know I have a lot of educating to do and bringing people along and building more champions. But it's just a great culture. People are excited. You don't always see that everywhere.
Yeah.
You might come into a sustainability position and come up against a lot of challenges or opposition. For me, it's just, hey, this is what we should do. This is what we can do. This is how it will benefit the organization and make a more positive impact, and people get excited about it.
Yeah. And how we named a few, making sure things don't end up in landfills and things like that. How can sports teams make an impact in the sustainability space? How do you work with your comms and your marketing and things like that?
Yeah, the unique thing about a sports team is we have a really big microphone.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people pay attention, whether it's our fans, the community, the league, even around the world. So we can use our brand, we can use our voice to push more positive messaging. We have done a really wonderful job of that on the social impact side of things. When we think about diversity, inclusion, our organization is really committed to that. We have a whole social impact team that has built a lot of relationships in the community. So there's already trust built there and influence. So now we're thinking, how do we layer sustainability into that? And sports organizations are a great place to do that, because then we can drive our communities forward by whether it's being a leader or being a louder voice. So again, using our microphone to get these messages out, try to change minds, change behaviors, educate fans and the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you talk about Scope 3 emissions and how that impacts the Cavaliers organization?
As you know, I'm sure a lot of viewers know, Scope 3 emissions are huge. Waste, obviously, is a big part of that. What we're thinking about now is, what do we have control over? A lot of that is waste and travel. So thinking, okay, if we want to reduce our emissions on the waste side of things, again, how do we have maybe more recyclables, or how do we compost more? Maybe it's reusables, just evaluating all of that. And we're working on gathering data to set our baseline emissions. So we still need to set that baseline emissions. Scope 1 and 2, I have most of that data on. I'm still gathering Scope 3 emissions, so we can understand where we are and where we want to go. How do we set those goals? But some Scope 3 emissions are just inherent with organizations. We live in a very large country. Our team has to fly to other games, right? We can't get on a bus and go to California.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we know there's going to be impact there that we're not going to avoid. So it's accepting that, and how do we maybe look at innovation to reduce that impact in some way. But again, what do we have control over? we have control over what's in our arena, so let's focus on that. Maybe other business travel, because like I said, it's a pretty big company. People travel places. How can we be more strategic about that? And then also gathering that data and just sharing that with people in the company gets them to think about it more. Like, oh, okay, this is our impact. No one has thought about it before because no one has necessarily asked or gathered that data or calculated those emissions. So it's just going to be about awareness,
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back a little bit to your background. Like, I don't have a sustainability background. I have a background in like history and political science. I wanted to be a social studies teacher.
Okay.
I got my master's in public administration. I wanted to do like local public policy, but I never really studied environmental science. I guess what would you tell somebody who's maybe looking for a career change or just like getting more interested in sustainability because they're hearing voices like yours? What would you tell them if you were saying?
Find resources to educate yourself. When it comes to sports and sustainability, there's some resources out there that you can look to. There's a newer kind of organization out of Europe called Play for the Planet, and the founder is developing a curriculum to educate people. So you can go through this course to learn about sustainability in sports, and that's launching this summer and fall. So finding those resources, connecting with people. I've had students reach out to me to say, hey, I would love to hear about your career path and how you got into this. And I love talking to students because it's exciting to see people who want to do this. And it's also cool to see students can actually study this, right? This sustainability wasn't necessarily a thing when I was in school.
Yeah.
You could study environmental sciences or something much more on the science side of things.
Yeah.
And that the physical environment side of things. Now there is sustainability in business. There's all kinds of classes students can take. So that's really fun to see. But maybe there's a local university that offers a class that you could take. But really it's connecting with some of these organizations or just finding those resources where you can learn. I learned a bunch on edX or other online tools that you can take free courses if you want. And you learn a ton.
Yeah.
I did a really interesting waste training through the Department of Energy.
Oh, wow.
I think that was 8 sessions and learned a ton there, and that was free, right? So there's resources out there. Just dig a little bit and you can find them.
Yeah. I'm also like somewhat self-taught. I read a lot about like the stormwater side of things or like the watershed management, but I think it's really cool, and that helped you kind of get to where you're at and give you a better idea of informing your decisions going forward.
Yeah, definitely self-taught. If I can do it, anyone can do it, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but no, that's really cool. Danielle, how can fans be supportive of their favorite teams in sustainability measures that people like you guys are taking?
I'm always thinking about what other organizations to do, or, why people think sports organizations should even focus on this. Well, like I said, we can have an outsized influence in our communities. We also have to accept the fact that we are going to have some negative impacts. We're going to create waste. We're going to use a lot of energy. How can we do that better? And if you're a fan of a sports organization, hey, maybe reach out to them, see what they're doing. It'd be really interesting to see fans start to want to do this more. And there's been some cool activities, say like over in Europe. The real football scene, soccer, real football has focused much more on sustainability, at least over in Europe, partly because climate change impacts outdoor sports much more, and you've seen it a lot in Europe, whether it's heat waves impacting games, flooding of pitches. So some teams over there have really pushed out messaging, changed operations, engaged fans a lot. There's one team, Arsenal, if you've heard of them. They have.
I haven't. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. they have a cool kind of competition with their fans where you can score goals for doing different sustainability things. So you can sign up for the competition. Liverpool does a lot. There's a team over there called the Forest Green Rovers, which is a totally vegan stadium. It's a lower tier. It's not Premier League, lower tier, and totally powered by renewable energy. But the owner was really committed to that, right? So he pushed that which is cool because it has started to push soccer generally in the UK. And more teams are thinking about that. So it's like finding that. There's an organization, a team in Vermont called Vermont Green FC. If you're looking for a team to cheer on and you like soccer, check out Vermont Green FC. It is basically a sustainability organization that happens to play soccer.
Wow.
So all of the players, all of the volunteers of that are really committed, and that's their big focus. So it's pretty cool. You start to see that in some of these kind of lower tier or smaller organizations that can connect a lot with the community. So it's not just big organizations like the NBA or anything like that. There's a ton of smaller sports organizations that you can be a fan of, you can get involved in, who are really making an impact. So I love to see that throughout the sports world.
Yeah, so these aren't necessarily like major league teams. They're not even necessarily like minor league teams, right?
Exactly.
These are just kind of like people coming together and using like sports as like a community glue, and the focus is sustainability.
Yeah, you see it at the community level all the way up to the the top leagues like the NBA or the Premier League. So it's just across the spectrum of sports leagues, and everyone comes together, from all over to share those best practices, talk to each other. It's just a lot of fun.
How do the best management practices differ, maybe from different parts of the country?
I mentioned earlier, it depends on what resources you have access to. The coasts are a little farther along, like I said, and it's cultural. If you're in Seattle or San Francisco, people know to compost. They know what is recyclable. People just know what to do when they get to a bin. When you're here in Cleveland or other parts of the Midwest, it's just not part of our culture necessarily.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of educating of fans to do of, one, what is recyclable, because it's confusing. We hear all these different messages, depends what city you're in, where you're at, what arena you're in, about what's recyclable and what's not. That's confusing for people.
It is.
We get that. So we have to figure out what is the best communication, and we're still trying to figure that out. So that's a big challenge, and it's going to depend on your culture and where you're at and what's going to resonate with fans and what's going to change behavior. And behavior change is incredibly hard, but we're going to slowly work at it and do our best, and just make sure our fans have an epic experience while also being able to make a positive impact.
Right. Yeah. You got to make sure that the systems put in place people actually adhere to. Otherwise, maybe you're wasting your time, right?
Yeah.
I know I need the signs personally. I don't know if you're a Cleveland native, but like,
yes.
I need the signs sometimes at the restaurants.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. You got the 3 bins. You got to make sure you put them all in the right bins.
Right.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. What is this recyclable? Is it not? I don't know. It's just it's hard. It's waste can be a bit of a mess. But we're going to do our best.
Yeah, waste can be messy.
Exactly. It can be messy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Danielle, I was curious. We have just one more question for you.
Uh-huh.
I was curious if you had ever met LeBron James before as a member of the Cavaliers family.
I have not. We do love LeBron James. He's always special to Cleveland. Haven't met him, but hopefully one day he can, get back to Cleveland in some form or fashion. But we have a lot of great players, great team, great culture, and maybe we'll get LeBron back one day.
We're going back to the playoffs this year.
We're going back to the playoffs. Let's go Cavs.
Okay, let's go Cavs. Are there any other people or organizations you'd like to plug before we wrap up here?
Yeah, there are a few organizations really focusing on sports and sustainability, whether it's at the collegiate level or the professional level. Green Sports Alliance is an excellent one. They've been around for quite a while, growing quickly as well. We're a member of the Green Sports Alliance, so I encourage people to check them out. Sport Positive is another one. That one's out of the UK, but also supports messaging in the United States as well. So Sport Positive is an excellent one. I think I mentioned Play for the Planet. There's a handful out there. So check out some of these organizations if you want to learn more about sustainability in sports. They have newsletters, they have playbooks, and there's a lot you can learn.
Yeah. And also you forgot the softball league that we're starting, right?
Of course, your softball league.
Danielle, thank you so much for talking all things green with me. I'm going to let our viewers know how they can stay in touch with us. If you'd like to stay connected with the show, be sure to follow us on TikTok at ATG Show. And if you'd like to rewatch full episodes, check out our YouTube channel, All Things Green Show. You can find all of our sources from today's episode in our show notes. All Things Green will be back very soon. Thank you so much for being a part of the global sustainability movement.